Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here. Was in Wyndham. Who knows what I will be tomorrow. But anyway, have to change a little bit, sort of the concession. As a related event, kind of. I did have a conversation with Danny Shine, over there, social experimentalist. Had brief contact with him over the last couple of years, and it was always something we were going to get around to, but anyway. So the conversation, with a few technical things, just was a little more casual than a regular video, I suppose. So I'm going to use it as just a stepping off point of, the context of conversation, what it has to be, what this whole argument has to take as a shape. So on his channel, he's social experimentalist, so he does the social thing, and the bullhorn approach to provoking, or injecting the idea into people's heads, let's say, and because obviously the media and everything else isn't gonna. They're only going to do what they're forced to do. You have to force them to recognize news, or to, it's all what do, they only feed the animals what the animals want to eat. And so, it's hard to break into, what would be the popular culture. In terms of conversation and debate and all of that, that will probably eventually be part of the process. Benatar broke through, and a bit, and so it just has to, it's just a slow, gradual process. So the argument's going to have to take some other form than just me. That's not the right form. Although the arguments I think I've made are good, I haven't made them in a way that's conducive to what you need to do. You have to dress the part, however you want to describe it. You have to, I don't like it, but it's the way it is. It's the way the world runs. You have to talk, baby talk, and pretend, the truth is something other than it is. And use language that is, less direct, less honest, because people can't handle the truth. It's just the truth. They can't. So those are just practical things. People have nagged me for years about writing a book, and I would argue that it should only have to be a pamphlet, but the underlying arguments are probably require more. I mean, the fact that most of the world is deluded by religion still is a huge problem. And the current environment, doesn't discourage it, and it kind of coddles it and protects it and cherishes the stupidity of religion. And that's partly because all the democracies have been invaded by more religious people. And so instead of going forward over the last 20 years, most civilizations, the ones that were civilized, have lost some measure of their civilization to, the huddled masses of ignorant retards. See, that's the kind of thing you can't say. So, I'm a long way from what I have to be in terms of my performance art. Anyway, so it was an interesting adventure, and it should provide for some constructive remanufacture of my priorities. Something like that, maybe. Yeah. something had to change eventually, and I was already getting there. I mean, in terms of trying to isolate the important parts of the argument and try to figure out the strategy for how you deal with a world where, we haven't even got a liberal right to die anywhere yet. I mean, even the places where you have some right to die, it's far from what it needs to be in terms of the graceful exit people should be entitled to. And the reason why we don't have it is because of this idiotic notion in way too many heads that God created us and God will be offended. We're not allowed to, spit on his creation or find it insufficient or fundamentally flawed. And that religious notion permeates an awful lot of atheists who are still lost in some sort of tiptoe through the tulip kind of notion about what reality is, or else they're just so horribly glib and self-interested that they take no account for what doesn't affect them. And you can be lucky and walk around and say everything's just fine. Not too many people are sticking microphones. There's not a whole lot of reporters who go to the hospital every day and interview the the people who aren't getting the the best of the luck draw of this is your life. Yuck. So thinking about it, I can break it down into there's two kinds of arguments. There's the argument from reality, where you're just trying to explain that life is harsh and brutal. Most of it is just tedious and annoying. It's like most of your life you're just stubbing your toe. Okay, it's not a big horror. It's just a horror of nuisance and nags and obligations and messes and little murders all over the place, little fatigues. So yeah, it's not terrible, but it's not fun either. And then you have the extreme bits where you have some nice, comfortable sunset moment or whatever, some whatever the description of that would be, an enjoyable meal and nice movie or something, whatever, and then you have those, the little bit better ones. Okay, fine, they do happen, and then you have the rest that is just all the harder miseries, sicknesses and aches and pains and diseases and shit, not nice at all stuff. And so you're just basically explaining how, the wins are trivial, the losses are catastrophic in a lot of cases, and even if I took the 1,000 doing the best people, having the best life experience, you'd have to figure they'd have to be fundamentally probably retarded, right? Because who can be having that good a time, you compare it to the 1,000 worst cases, it's overwhelming that if the price of that is that, you wouldn't buy it. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, it's a good deal. I'll sentence my own kid to that, a 50-50 chance of falling in one of those two buckets, the stupid happiness bucket or the catastrophically miserable bucket. I mean, it's not even a contest in terms of appreciating that would make you sadistically crazy to take that kind of risk with anything you cared about, including yourself. I mean, nobody can be that desperate. I can't, I shouldn't say nobody, because obviously there's a ton of people who have all of this, they have all this unsatisfied ambition, and they think they're going to satisfy it somewhere in the future. 1,000 years from now, they're going to be happy, and therefore it's worth it. Some kind of notion like that. So anyway, there's just the argument that, look, there's no God. It's evolution. Evolution is horribly inefficient and wasteful. The most precious thing it creates, which is the feeling sentient organism, is the thing it least values. It's only using your ability to feel as a reward and punishment tool, as a way of whipping you into conforming to the plan, which is basically kill and eat your brother. And it's all pretty much cannibalism. You know, innocent little creature brutalizing innocent little creature. It's just not too good. Time for a pause. Alright, should be back. So evolution is, full of inadequacies as an experimental procedure, as a process. If you thought of it as a rat maze game or something, and you were responsible for its maintenance and creation and existence, and you were the one, grinding the machine that gave it electricity to keep it functioning, you could figure out that this isn't a good enough game, that deserve doesn't have anything to do with it. The best things don't win. It's not a fair game. It wouldn't be worthy of your, as you as a spectator, it wouldn't be worthy of watching, and it certainly you wouldn't want to be responsible for it. So just like if we had regular sporting events in which we didn't guarantee fairness or deserve has anything to do with it, you probably wouldn't find it very interesting. If they just pulled tickets out before the beginning of the game and said winner, loser, you get knifed in the head, your best player, is blah blah blah. I mean, you wouldn't find it very interesting. And that's the real contest and game we're playing, and there just isn't enough of that deserve and fair thing that's in it. It's sloppy and messy. The cost is obscene for, again, trivial victory. So that's a fact of our circumstance. Anybody who's an atheist should be able to figure this out, but yet they're belligerently hostile to recognizing these obligations of intelligence. And you can see that in the fact that they'll resist some notion that they're obligated to care about animals or to consider their welfare, and so they'll imprison them and torture them and kill them for food, some other trivial gratification. They'll make up whole fake stories that their ancestors were, ripping the hide off wildebeests and, chow down on the raw flesh. Preposterous stories. Fairy tales, just plain fairy tales, to pretend that this is some great tradition and they're part of a great lineage, and they're not selfish, creepy, bug-like creatures scheming for the gratification of needs imposed upon them, not needs chosen. So the facts are ugly and sad and tragic. And somebody rational, in my opinion, should be able to come to the right conclusion just by looking at those tragic and horrible and disgusting facts, that all these animals are in just constant need and eking a horrid existence. But again, the evidence of the blindness is so overwhelmingly obvious, in the sense that they come up with plans to deal with like feral cats or something. All these people have this empathy for the creatures we've designated to be appropriate pet creatures, the ones that get to have the privileged life, and while the rest of them are left to slavery, based on nothing but cuteness, nothing much else. Human compatibility. They're more compatible with us, and therefore they should be treated special. Again, deserving have nothing to do with it. The pig doesn't deserve his fate at all. And they come up with plans like, well, yeah, let's cut its nuts off and throw it back in the street to die miserably. Great plan. I mean, I just feeling the love. You know, if I was a cat, I'd just be like, oh man, they really do love us, don't they? You really do love us. No, I'm afraid not. So we're really far from having a rational conversation, because even when people do recognize something as bad, feral cat living on street eating garbage, they can't come up with anything near a rational solution to the problem. So it's just, you know, this is a difficult task, even though it's obvious and plain, and you almost think, this can't be something I have to actually argue, right? I shouldn't have to argue any of this stuff. People should be able to figure this out. And so it is a little tedious to realize you have to have you know, it's a conversation with an infant or something. You know, it's barely, you know, it's just doing the goo thing. And, you know, it's going to be a long road to getting anywhere, in terms of their perspective is so broken, so preposterously insufficient. Anyway. Right, so I used preposterous once. I can't use it again in this video. It's probably a new rule. Yeah, can't have my favorite words either. It's part of the performance art. You know. Anyway, so the other side of the argument is the ethics argument, where you could say that you know, there's a whole conversation to be had about what the nature of a right is, and whether we have a right to informed consent, you know, whether we have a right to veto, just because, you know, it's okay to do something benign, but it's not okay to do something dangerous to something. And that's the basic ethical concepts that surround us, or this kind of Jeffersonian understanding that your rights end where somebody else's rights begin, and the rights of the people who don't want to be part of your lottery, who don't want to have tickets shoved in their pocket. The fact is that if you had any rational notion of ethics, you'd recognize that that's perfectly appropriate. It's perfectly appropriate for the victims to say, no, I'd rather not be your victim. I don't want to pull the slavery card or ticket and, you know, be subjected to your aggressive experiment. And that's what it is. It's you know, you have to trespass on somebody's welfare to have your game of life. And you just can't Shanghai, you know, to use an old term, people and oblige them to be, you know, your crew, part of your vehicle. And it's just a fact. So until you can figure out how to just torture yourselves, you really don't have a right to vote for a future where you're going to subject a lot of other people to danger because you aren't risk averse, and they are, and they have a right to be, and that you have an obligation to respect the fact that they don't want to play your risk game. You know, they don't want to have 479 mile an hour speed limits. You know, they want to have some rational one. And until you can provide a rational speed limit, until you can prevent the deserve has nothing to do with it consequences of existing, that you have no right to impose. So again, this word gets you back to something like the right to die, and the fact that you know, civilized people still haven't figured out that it's really, really stupid to force people to live when they're done living. You know, they've had enough. They've had enough experiences. They're all finished having them, and the only ones they have to look forward to are horrible ones, because they're in a horrible physical condition and have nothing to do but choke and breathe funny and be in intense pain. And to impose that on people is so, I mean, it's just, you know, there's no real good word for it. I mean, who but a crazy sadistic lunatic would force somebody to live when they're done living? And worse, not just done living, but terribly afraid of the future they're looking at. Why would anybody do that? Why why would a decent, sensitive human being think that's a good idea? Let's torture that person for no good reason. They will not do anything wonderful. They're not going to have any more wonderful experiences. They're not going to have anything good is going to happen to them, except not as bad. The best you can do for them is I didn't have quite as horrible a day today. That's the best they have to hope for. And you're going to impose that on them? You're going to force them to march, when they're that crippled and disabled? I mean, it's cruel, it's horrible, it's disgusting. And yet they pretend, oh, no, I'm on the good guy's side. No, they're Nazis. You can't get any more Mengele than forced torture, imposing torture for just very little prospect of a profit. I mean, somebody's, 75 years old, has advanced cancer. Why are you judging and saying you know what's best for them? And what's best for them is to suffer some more. I mean, it's so bad, How can anyone defend that position and come off being a reasonable person? They can only do it because we allow them to say, well, I have a spiritual feeling that it's all going to be okay. It's all right. God will reward you in the happy land. They're going to say something so imbecilic. And yet we have a culture that says that's okay. You can be a complete imbecile. You can respond to committing the crime of torture with some dopey excuse like that. It's like, what? So if murderers could go into court and plead, God told me so, you really don't let them do that, right? But that's why I guess all they should do is say, well, God was talking to me. What, are you going to tell me my religion isn't a religion? You don't have any obligation to respect it? God told me to go kill the bitch. Rape her first, because he was big on this whole, he said, well, why don't you try to do some of that, inseminating thing? And I tried it all kinds of ways, but it just didn't work until I actually did rape her. Immaculate conception. I tried, but, couldn't do it any other way. I mean, it's that bad. I mean, it really is that bad. That there's no way a person could, if the right questions are asked to them, they can't come off as anything else but an imbecile, a lunatic, a psychotic, defending, torturing things for just no good reason. So they'll torture, their own family members even, right? I mean, I guess to some extent, that's where you see their hypocrisy and duplicity, is when it comes to somebody they care about. Then they're a lot more willing to say, well, I meant to vote for a right to die. I could see that hypocrisy in my own parents, where, they vote Republican with the fucking Christian right, with the morons every election, and then wonder why. Well, why don't we have some way for these poor, sick, my parents to gracefully exit? Well, we don't have the right because you voted against the right. That's why we don't have the right, quite obviously. You kept voting for assholes who didn't say those things. You just kept voting for tax cuts, and to keep the downtrodden under your foot. So anyway, it's just quite dismal prospect we're stuck in with. But I'm just saying it is so simple, it's so indestructible an argument from both sides. It's ethically wrong to impose anything that carries any margin of risk. It's just obnoxious to tell somebody else, it's good for you, I say so, with a whole philosophy that is made out of absolute crap. I defend my I say so with crap. Because God told me so, because, well, that's what we've been doing for 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 years, so we ought to keep doing it. I'm an atheist, but I'll think and behave exactly like a lunatic Christian. Nothing changes. So, so that's sort of my state of mind. And so you're sitting in that position saying, well, what's the dumbest, where's the starting point? And I keep thinking that, yes, the starting point is you have to first get people unreligious. And then second, you have to get them, if they're glib, I don't know. See, that's the tricky part, right? I mean, if they don't feel anything except what's in it for me, if that's the only thing they're capable of constructing in their brain, that's tough. But like I said, you sort of see that that's not really their truth. Because if it's happening to their kids or to their mommy, okay, then all of a sudden they sort of get it, right? They sort of have some idea that, yeah, well, this isn't quite right. I mean, mom's saying kill me, and you really probably should, because that's what she's saying she wants. She's done. So why don't you let her be done? So they can get it when it's happening to them, or the ones they care about. But like I say, well, who cares about something is a whole nother tricky part, right? Because people are really so insensitive and so self-obsessed that as long as it's not happening to them, it's not happening. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. And how do you argue with it? They're crazy, pretty much. So, a little break, as I feel like it. Yeah. All right, should be back again. Yeah. All right, so I thought we'd play one of these. Just haven't seen this one yet. It's a great question to ask people over and over again. What does being human mean to you? And it'd be nice to compile a bunch of random answers from the world, the average people, and just see how, they, when they're put on the spot, what kind of, babble they just, well, the spiritual significance of it all, or some kind of crap like that, some kind of mush. I mean, I can't even imagine the mush, but it's going to be pretty mushy, I imagine. So, let's see what it says.
Alexa, set the temperature to 70 degrees.
It says there's an ad first.
Set the temperature to 64 degrees. Okay.
She's talking to their little frickin' tablets.
Having a life, maybe? I don't know.
It's just getting up, going to work, going home. Getting up, going to work. That's human.
Yeah. Retarded. No, that's retarded. It might be in a subclass of, human is a subclass of retarded. There's lots of retarded in the universe, let's say. Yes, but that's what that is, retarded.
Life and trying not to harm other people around you.
There you go. Just trying to just eke out your stupid existence without making it a mess. And that's if you're just a little bit decent. If decency sort of became a thing, oh yeah, I'd like to be really good at decent. And if you're really good at decent, yeah, then you're a little more focused on the fact that, hey, this is really a mess. Deserve doesn't have enough to do with it. It is indecently unfair. And you'll find that offensive and do something to fix it.
Es un ser que habita en este planeta.
It's someone who lives in this planet that...
Y tiene conciencia.
Ah, I speak fucking English. I'm not allowed to do that. Yeah.
Tiene libertad
conscious
de escoger.
free and has freedom of choice.
Sí, libre albedrío.
Except for the choice to say no mas. Except for the choice to say fuck you, leave me alone. Oh, I can't say that. Damn.
Tiene la oportunidad de tomar
Someone who has
decisiones.
the opportunity to take decisions.
Y siempre
Yeah, so he keeps talking about all these rights we don't have, anywhere close to. Mind your own business. Impose your silly game on yourself. Okay, not some version that you're pretending to be. Yeah, I'm not, don't pretend I'm you. 'Cause I'm not.
el resultado de su vida
And the
es
result
el
of their
resultado de sus
life
decisiones.
is the result of the decisions that they take. That's what...
Ah, right. He wants deserve to have something to do with it. Yes, and it has nothing to do with it. So that's just all crap. all the deformed and broken things in this world didn't deserve it. And you know it, so why are you pretending it has something to do with the game you're playing, when it has nothing to do with the game you're playing?
What human is.
What is being human mean to me? Being good, I guess. You know, being helpful, being...
Helpful and good. I'm going to torture people who don't want to live. I'm just going to torture them for no good reason. I'm going to force them to want to. So if they don't want to, I'll give them drugs, or I'll electrocute their brain, or I'll do whatever I can to try to force them to be what I think they should be, because I know what's best. No, what is being human? Human is being an arrogant putz who thinks they know what's best.
sincere, being honest.
Oh yeah, so there's so much sincerity and honest in the pretense of this, make-up fake world we live in. Yes, it's all so honest. Oh, you people are silly.
Honest, helping people.
Oh yes, helping them to pain and suffering. I'll help you to suffer I'll maximize your pain and suffering. Do everything I can to create more of it in the world. I'll exploit other people's circumstances. If there's too much labor, yes, I'll drive your wages way, way, way down. That's the kind of loving, friendly person I am. Fuck you, bitch.
Loving life.
Oh, yeah, loving life, right? Loving watching your children die, and watching the animals being tortured and having their flesh ripped off, and so we can stir it up in our little fry pans or something. Oh, you're such a loving person. Yeah, right.
Enjoying life, enjoying people.
Yeah, right, whatever. Enjoying the cesspool of your failure. You have this complete failed civilization, and here you are smiling. Look what a great success we all are. Oh, I mean, if deserve had something to do with it, there'd be a piano over her head, and the rope would be going fraying at this very moment.
I think that's it, and life is the journey, so...
Well, yes, the journey to where? Pain and suffering. Yes, death. Oh, we're all going to death, a death holiday. I mean, there's just on the Titanic, and this is the best they can do. Oh, there's lovely violin music.
Just be happy
The air is so fresh and cold.
every day, because life is too short, and be here is to...
Yeah, it goes on and on and on and on. Yeah, it's you die, and then somebody picks up the hammer and just... I'm hammering. Isn't it special? Look, I'm hammering. Oh, pathetically stupid people.
enjoy those things with people that you love.
Yeah, la 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 la. Answer in the comment section, please. Oh, well, that's interesting, yes. Maybe we'll go adventure into the comment section. Well, you could take a whole video just on these insane answers to the question, right? Let's see. To me, being human means being coerced, yeah, okay, by pain and death to play an irrational game of survival. You're not just surviving, though, right? No, you're playing the game of I deserve, I am entitled, I need things better than they are. Mortal Flesh, a game which requires harming and being harmed for no good reason, to no good accomplishment or end. The summation will not be a wonderful story. I mean, once the play's over, the critic is going to sit there and say, gee, that really sucked. The story really isn't going to be that good. And the ending is always going to be stuck in the minds of people, just like every memory I have of every human I've known who has passed. I'm blighted, an animal, with the images of the bad ending. I mean, it should be the most obvious thing that we should correct is bad endings. I mean, you know, if we can't fix all the rest, the undeserved stuff, the unfairness stuff, the least we could do is ensure good endings. And the society's obnoxious to the subject. If it's by intent, you know, you can only have a good ending after you already have a bad ending. You know, your bad ending has to be really bad before they'll let you cut even a little bit off of it. Yeah. A consumer who is brought here without own permission, that's what it means to me. A victim, that's all. A victim of stupid. And a stupid system, evolution, on its face, just no rational economics to it at all. Kill the many, you know, to reward the few. Just completely upside down ethically. And then stupid humans, you know, who have all this intelligence they're so proud of, and they can't figure that out. They just keep doing the same thing. Let's, you know, let's punish the many and reward the few. Keep buying those lottery tickets. You know, the perfect sleep, not even question his own life. I don't know, getting up and going to work, going home, getting up, going to work, going home. The perfect sleep. Oh, the perfect sheep. Not even questioning his own life. Well, obviously you're not doing that, so, you know, Chris is being a little bit disingenuous. We are self-actuating. It's that these people, see, they're just so absorbed in themselves that they really think, you know, they made themselves. I made me. You know, no, you didn't. You're still just byproduct, fella. Self-learning data streams. I mean, this self-learning thing is just so silly. Data streams. There's just interactions. There's causes and effects. And, you know, you just can't... This game that you're somehow doing some magical thing. You're a magical byproduct, you know, of some sparky bit. No, you're not. It's just ingredients thrown in a bowl. And some bowls, the oil sticks to the side of the bowl, so the oil doesn't get mixed in, or the egg sits over there and it doesn't really get mixed in, and in other bowls it does. See, and so some bowls it gets mixed well, some bowls it doesn't mix so well. That's all there is. That to me is the most accurate way I can tell you what I have seen in my lifetime about what humans are at the level of consciousness. Oh, so he's quoting somebody else. Jim Gates speaking at Lex, whatever that is. So yes, so more of fake physics kind of stuff. You know, the scientists are self-actuating. You know, information. You know, they love that word. You know, information now is the new energy word in physics. Yeah, they think it's stored somewhere. Okay, being human is to realize there is no boundaries or limitations. Smiley face. I don't know. That was a joke? I don't know. No boundaries or limitations, except all the fences and all the borders and all the curbs and all... Yeah. Except for all the boundaries and limitations, there's almost none. Shit. Alright, so enough. It's probably enough. So we'll take a break. Yeah, should be back. Yes. So another video here I found. Is having children ethical or logical? Very good question. Yeah, simple. Should be. So let's see what that one is. So anyway, obviously,
for the abuse of children to stop.
Well,
The new law gives survivors of childhood sexual abuse a chance to take legal action. Jeff Anderson and
yeah, it's just a lawyer trying to make money off child abuse. I mean, it's just so tacky. You know, even, you know, whatever. Alright, this film is for entertainment purpose only. All characters are fictitious. Please make sure to obey all the rules at all times. Yes. Don't see any.
What I'm looking for is an ethical, logical, and financially sound reason to reproduce. Go.
Because children are a blessing, and
Because children are a blessing. Now let's have a look. How many have you got? I'll tell you what, if you'd like...
Kind of funny. It's just, you know, it's just the human race. That's the best they can do. A blessing.
Gentlemen, if you'd like to, you know, those kind of statements, children are a blessing, yeah? They need evidence. You need evidence for that. That's just, otherwise it's just like a platitude, isn't it? I'll tell you what you're doing over the next couple of weeks, you can come and stay in my house and hang out with my children, and we'll see if you still think that they're a blessing.
I'll take that.
You will?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. We'll exchange addresses afterwards. Children are a blessing. Firstly, they might not be a blessing. You might have a really nasty child. Do you know what I mean, mightn't you? You might have a horrible, nasty, psychopathic child. You might have someone like Theresa May. Can you imagine? Someone had her. Right? Is children a beautiful thing? Was Theresa May a beautiful thing as a child?
Yeah, we don't know who that is, right? I guess that's some kind of political statement. Yeah, well, obviously, children aren't what people have the expectation that they would be, and so that's probably one of the first conversations they should have before they have children. They should have like a few hours, maybe, of conversation about what are reasonable expectations. Do you really think they're going to turn out to be little copies of you? No, it's not reasonable. Are they going to be, you know, you can't even tell how they're going to, what they're going to look like, what kind of mess you're going to be making, just to start physically, let alone what they're going to turn into psychologically. And when you see the averages, you know, the law of averages is by the time they're 60 years old, there's a 50% chance they're disabled, you know, to some extent. And you know that there's lots of people younger than that who are disabled, you know, by, you know, drug abuse and bad decisions in their life and financial this and all of that other crap. And so what do you sentence him to? Alcoholism? You know, come on. You're not doing anybody a favor. You know, it's just so stupid. But again, this is all the argument about what humans, you know, should be able to recognize in terms of their own lifestyle, that it doesn't really work. You know, unless you want to be a maid and a chauffeur, and you know, you don't have very high ambitions for your life, but to be a servant, you know, to the experiential needs of a youth, you know, who has to learn through experience, and you get to watch them fail, you know, this is potentially catastrophically. You know, oh, that's fun. I don't know how does anybody rational enjoy raising kids? I mean, you're just sitting there waiting for the disaster, waiting for the odds to catch up with you in terms of how many negative lotteries do they enter. They drive too fast, they drive a motorcycle, I mean, all kinds of things they've been doing, and you're just waiting, you know, for when it goes bad, and then you have a mess to clean up. You know, it doesn't make any sense as a lifestyle choice, but yes, I think the ethical point is more important. What are you going to do if you fail? If your little experiment turns out to be the worst, and you know, it's broken, you know, it doesn't work very well. How are you going to fix it? Oh, yeah, there's no plan. You know, I'll submit some forms and get some government aid. You know, terrible answer. Anyway, so yeah, good videos though. So yeah, I haven't been paying enough of attention to what's going on and whatnot, but you know, he started making videos with this edge on them a few months ago. And some good stuff. So, social experimentalist and such. So maybe I'll play this other one just to see what, you're soliciting antinatalists' cooperation in something. So, yeah, here it is. Antinatalist wanted. So, see what we can do.
Maybe Axe. It's in a bottle and it's not like a soap.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
My big bit.
So I was chatting to my brother about collaboration, and he reminded me that there's a huge amount of luck involved as to working with the right people, and all the successful people over the years have all had fortune in having collaboration, meeting the right people at the right times, which has taken their projects forward. Now, many years ago, I met a really interesting guy who doesn't appear on my videos. Occasionally he does, but normally he doesn't appear on my videos. But we talk almost every day and have loads of ideas. But he's not an implementation type of guy, and I still haven't really met anyone who's an implementation type of person.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't have any either. Well, there are people who are, project oriented. But the project is so nuanced, and and again, is this sort of lucky thing. You just kind of have to fall into a lucky circumstance, and then be able to exploit that with good luck also, and get lucky some more. It's hard to blueprint success in the migration of an idea into cultural popularity. So, the deliberate creation of memes, to do it in any honest way. I mean, obviously there's dishonest ways to make news, but it's not easy to do honestly.
To collaborate with, and this is a last minute call to see if I can find a partner to collaborate with this idea of setting up a political party in time for the general election, which is only 4.5 weeks' time to go. That would mean getting it all sorted in the next week, all the paperwork online, all that nonsense, and setting up this party.
Yeah, unfortunately, not enough time for that kind of thing. I've had the same notion of, I still have the domain name fairnessfirst.com. Well, fairness1st.com. Anyway, for the purpose of, because, the two parties are insane and in completely different ways, but they both have nasty bits in them that you just can't vote for.
I'm still prepared to stand, although I'd rather not, but I'd rather have someone else have children to stand. I'm happy for it to be done anywhere really in the country, although I prefer it was in London. I'd be happy to support someone who wants to stand somewhere else. Brighton might be quite interesting. But in order to stand, you have to get 10 people, I think, to sign.
Well, that's not too bad. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm more of an infrastructure, create something solid, not something just for one purpose, kind of disposable kind of thing. So, London, though, I couldn't remember the word London. Yeah, I said from England. Yeah, like England's a city. But anyway, it's close enough, right? What do we Americans care?
Support you. And so what I'm looking for is a partner who can devote themselves full time to this social experiment over the next 4.5 weeks. I think it will be a huge amount of fun, knocking on people's doors, going to town centres, speaking to people about antinatalism.
Yeah, that's the part I don't get. It's the fun part. But anyway, it's good to think it's fun when it's not. It's a right attitude to have. Try to make it fun.
I think the person involved would either have to be a signed-up antinatalist. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I've been speaking about it for quite some time.
And yes, good work and such. So anyway, probably enough. Obviously, there's no it's a specific kind of antinatalist needed. One living in London that can run for whatever dictator. Poobah. Alright, so I think I've covered basically what I need to do in this video, so we'll let it slide. And so in the future, I guess I will attempt to make videos that are more concise arguments. I don't know. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just keep talking about making concise arguments. Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's, you know, it's coming up with the right tool for the job kind of thing. I mean, I actually did make a little brief website thing where just, you know, short videos connected to each other would be the idea. Yes and no questions, and then you go to the different videos based on your answer. And I think that idea probably has some validity, because you really have to knock down the barriers that people have to having a rational conversation. And, you know, one of the barriers, the minimum barrier with religion, is for them to oblige them to imagine the world as if they're wrong. What if their God doesn't exist? What if evolution is the truth? Is their opinion the same whether evolution or God did it? You know, if there is no reward in heaven, are you still arguing that the unnecessary, the pointless torturing of the dying people makes any sense? I mean, come on. So anyway, so there's just a lot of context to how you have a conversation with somebody, and there's no real point in having a conversation, in my opinion, if they have some imbecilic notion that just makes rationality impossible. It's too big an error to be overcome. Yeah, that kind of thing. So, call it a video. Thank you for your attention and such, so forth and whatnot. Appreciate some vague way. Yes. Okay. Champ down to work.